In Monkey D. Luffy, what does the D stand for? Is it a Donbori, a bull for translation, or maybe a Daibutsu, which of course is a giant Buddha statue, or maybe, I'm really curious, please tell me. In which the answer was, I've gotten a ridiculous number of these letters, so many, but I cannot answer the question. I can't answer it, yet please just read it as D, and don't think too deeply into it for now. Volume 8, Ichiro Oda, SBS. Now the Legend Mac here, and a lot of people were on my case for my last video on Imu and the Gorisei's powers and abilities, because they're like, what is that all you got from the last chapter? The Willa D, the reveal, you didn't care about any of that stuff, the lore, just power scaling and abilities. Well, no, listen, and I'll tell you guys right now, I love One Piece lore, but I want to talk about that first because it's so easy to discuss. The Willa D, this video is probably one of my most researched video of all time. I'm not just going to put out a half-ass video on the Willa D and the lore we got in the last chapter. I'm going to take my time with it. Abilities and power scaling is so easy, it's so second nature to me that I could just drop anything. Honestly, it's just quick off the top of my head, because obviously if you guys want to see true power scaling, go to my channel Dripco. I got a Kazuki Oden versus Zoro video coming out soon because of the Zoro hype from the last episode. But I'll tell you guys right now, the Willa D is more complex than just an initial, a letter. We got the Monkey D family, with of course Garp being a Marine, not just any Marine, the hero of the Marines, of course. And then of course we have Monkey D Dragon, the leader of the revolutionary and the most wanted man in the entire world. And then of course we got Monkey D Luffy, the Yonko, and also the man who has the Joy Boy Devil Fruit, the Sungan Nika. So yeah, the Monkey D family is definitely living up to their initial. Then we got Marshall D Teach, who, let's be honest here, a lot of people are calling him a fake D. They think this savage of a Yonko was definitely not being D-like. But what is D-like, honestly? Like you saw in the last chapter, Imu said that these guys are just a hollow shell of themselves. They're not truly understanding the meaning of their initial. So I do want to say this when it comes to Blackbeard. Cut him some slack. He is a Willa D member. Then of course we got fellow Willa D who got defeated by Blackbeard, Law, who I personally think is a special D, and I'll explain that later in the video, because we know Law, his dream is to find out what the Willa D is. Of course it's all connected to Corazon, but I'm going to talk about Law especially in this video, so of course you guys gotta stay tuned for that. But I do want to say this, we also got a giant D. Pause, I know that sounded really weird, but I'm talking about Jaguar D Saw, of course, who we thought was dead but was actually alive recently in Egghead Island, which is honestly the best One Piece arc, I can't lie to you guys. Then we got the Gold D family with Gold D Roger, the Pirate King, the man who did it all but it was too early, and his son Portgas D Ace. Let's be honest here, Ace was like a main character in the pre-time skip when it comes to Marineford being the culmination of everything. Portgas D Ace of Should Be Cool D Ace. And then of course we have to talk about how Portgas is his mother, another Willa D family, Portgas D Rouge. And then finally we have Rox D Zebek, who lost to 2 Ds in Garp and Roger. But I think the Neftari D family changes everything, and because the Neftari are even more special than Law when it comes to being significant. And these last 2 chapters made me do some extreme research on one letter, so stick to the end of the video to find out what I exactly am I talking about. But you guys know nothing about the Willa D, and I'm not saying that to be arrogant, I'm saying that because the Willa D is so complex that I'm gonna bring it all together in this video, and you guys can help me in the comment section telling me things I missed. But I think I went deep with this one, guys, and no pun intended with the D, first letter D. Okay, maybe I'm reaching like Luffy. Okay, let me stop. So have you heard of Gold D Roger? You mean Gold Roger? Every soul in the world has heard of him. And then Korea talks about how Chopper signed up for more than he actually bargained, because of course Monkey D Luffy, same initial as Gold D Roger. Dr. Korea goes on to say the Willa D lives on, and all I'm thinking is that meme where you see the guy saying he knows. I'm thinking for Dr. Korea, she knows. Yes, we know she's old as hell, but she's saying some spooky things, talking about Gold D Roger, talking about the Will D still lives on. Like, how much do you know, Dr. Korea? And I really want to see you in a flashback now. Or Miss All Sunday, aka the Straw Hat Nico Robin before her Straw Hat days, asking Luffy, why do you guys always fight? And Luffy's just like, D? Like, what are you talking about? Like, because Robin has, let's just be honest here, Robin has dealt with Willie D's always fighting and always trying to change something. It's a reference to Jaguar D. Saul, who of course didn't also know why he has that initial D. He just knows that every member in his family has that in their name, which we already knew with Garp and Dragon and whatnot, but this is a confirmation that the Willie D is just like, if you're born in a family that has 20 kids, they're all gonna be D initials. That's just what the Willie D is. Right now, it's just an initial, and it's really just a callback to the original D initials that are your ancestors. Then I think about how Roger complained of them calling him Gold Roger instead of Gold D Roger, and Whitebeard asks, what does the D mean? As of course he runs into a few of them in his time as a pirate, of course, talking about Rocksteed Zebek, and even says he has one in his crew in Marshall D. Teach, who will later be known as Blackbeard. And I do want to say this, Roger tells him the story of the D's, and this was a very big hint to how deep this is, because Roger doesn't just say the D is this, he says there's a whole story to it. And Whitebeard looks at Teach right after and says, it ain't you who's Roger's waiting for those who have inherited Roger's will as well as Ace's will, and as long as the bloodline survives, the flame will never die, as it zooms into Luffy's picture during the manga panel. And I just think, damn, this is crazy, guys. Like, Whitebeard is saying some fire things right now, and a lot of people are not even noticing. Then says, a man will appear bearing the will, and of course the history of these centuries, the burden of the centuries. And Sengoku is just like completely shocked. The world government is of course completely shocked, and Whitebeard says, you guys, the Sengoku, the world government, you guys are shook of that day. And pretty much then talks about the treasure and how now we got confirmation that the One Piece, when it comes to its connection to of course the Will of D. Then of course Law said though D will bring a storm without fail, after of course wondering why Rayleigh was visiting Luffy. And that's pretty much the main reason why Law saved Luffy. Law looked at Luffy as, okay, I'm part of the worst generation, but there's only one other pirate part of the worst generation that has the same initial as me, Luffy. We're connected, and that's not Eustace Kid, that's not Rowan or Zoro, that's not Killer, that's not Hawkins, Scratchman Apu, Mad Monk or Rouge. I know the jokes over Rouge being a D, or even Jewelry Bonnie or Capone. Like, honestly, there's no one else who of course has the initial D in the worst gen. And if you even go deeper into Law's past, Baby 5 and Buffalo ask what his name is, and he says, I'm not supposed to say, but he replies, Trafalgar D Water Law. The D is an alias and the water is a secret name. For generations his family was, and then he gets cut off. And it just makes me think, what if he didn't get cut off? What was Law about to say about the water part? Because the water part might be important to of course the D part. I think it's all connected, and I ain't sleeping. That's why I said stay tuned in this video, because I was going to reveal how special Law is as a D member. Then of course we have Rosinante Corazon revealing that the Celestial Dragons think of, like, when they're talking about the Will of D, they tell their children, if you don't eat your food, if you don't behave, the D will gobble you up. So they're kind of like the boogeyman for their children. And of course, when a famous Will of D member comes into place, I give you an example, like say Monkey D Dragon or Monkey D Luffy, or of course Marshall D Teach, the elders in Mary Joa's whisper, the D will bring a storm. And it just makes me think, like, how this storm, what happened to, of course, the Celestial Dragons during the Void Century from the Will of D, because they were going at it. Then of course Corazon says that of course they're seen as the enemies of the gods, and says the D versus Celestial Dragons and the world as we know it, like the philosophy, like the D pretty much goes against the philosophy of the Celestial Dragons. It pits them against the Celestial Dragons. It's so deep, guys. I can go on and on. And then we see Law speaking to the former Fleet Admiral Sengoku, and Law says, the D way of life Korra wanted for me. And Sengoku says D, and Law says, yeah, like, do you know, like Luffy's name, he has D in it too, do you know anything about the Will of D? And Sengoku says, I couldn't say, but I know for a fact Corazon did not know anything. And that's crazy, because Corazon told us a lot, but Sengoku's confirming that Corazon doesn't really know what the D is, he knows what the D is interesting. Sengoku says he didn't, and then he goes on to say, Corazon didn't save your life because of the initial, he saved your life because of course don't ever attach love to a reason. And then says the D will always follow a checkered fate. I'm gonna focus on these two things. Of course, Corazon, like, he's pretty much saying Corazon loved you, bro. It wasn't about the Will of D, but also the D will always follow a checkered fate. And I'm just thinking Sengoku has probably seen so much since God Valley. Now that we know that, it's just crazy, guys. Of course, Cobra, of course, chapter 1084 asked the Gorosei what the Will of D was, and they reply, "Why do you ask?" It's such a funny reply because like they definitely are just playing mind games with Cobra. And then of course the Cobra goes on to mention a letter from a pen by the Queen Lily, the Neftari Queen. And honestly, it just goes on to drop the bomb of last chapter. So Imu in the last chapter, I didn't talk about it, but I'll talk about it now. Imu says, "I will reveal the D. They are once our opposition. They are once Imu's ops. And of course, of the days that are long gone, the Void Century. The Ds recently are hollow shells who fail to understand the meaning of their own names." So Imu's pretty much saying that the Ds of the current era don't know shit. They weren't there. I was there. The Gorosei was there during the Void Century. That's how I seen it. I could be wrong, but that's how I interpret Imu talking about the Will of D. Then Imu goes on to complain about Queen Lily being her fault for the poneglyphs being scattered around the world, which now we got a hint of how the poneglyphs actually became a thing. We always knew it, the Kozuki clan had to do something with it, but now we're getting more information. And pretty much, was it a mistake? Imu's second guessing that was it a mistake that Queen Lily did that, or was it planned out? For all we know, Lily was taken out regardless if it was a mistake or not, but to see Imu talk like this, it was interesting. But here's where things get extra crazy. Imu asks for the name of the person who penned that letter, and it wasn't Neftari Lily. There was more to it. And boom, Cobra says Neftari D Lily. And as soon as Cobra says that, Imu says D and just attacks with, might be a tail or an arrow, I'm not too sure, but Imu gets triggered by that letter. Not just the letter being belonging to Neftari. Honestly, it looked like Imu didn't even know that Neftari was a Will of D member. But all I gotta say is this, like deep down, maybe she was playing both sides. Queen Lily was trying to bring both sides together, that the Will of D's and the Celestial Dragons, and at the end of the day, she chose a side, and that was the Will of D, that was Joy Boy. Cobra then tells Sabo to tell Luffy and Vivi they too are D's, pretty much saying that Luffy and Vivi are connected in the Will of D, and now knows what path Alabasta must take. And of course, it's honestly so interesting because Sabo is telling this all to a Will of D member, that is Monkey D. Dragon. So honestly, things are about to get super crazy. Cobra then goes on to sacrifice himself and says, "Hoist the flag of the Dawn and for the world." And I just think about Joy Boy and that attack Luffy did called Dawn Rocket. I just think about how, of course, Toki says pretty much the moon and the dawn in that speech he did in Wano before she passed away. There's just so much dawn references in One Piece that I could just quickly think about. Neftari D Lily, dawn. Now that's just crazy. Does the D mean dawn? I'm gonna end this video like this. I believe Roger, before he passed away, met Imu, and I think he did discuss things with Imu when it comes to the Will of D, but honestly, Roger handing himself over, maybe he wanted to meet Imu because Roger saw the stories of Joy Boy, the Void Century. Roger's the only man to know that true history to a perfection by getting to Laugh Tale, and the first man since in 800 years to know that. Of course, his crew too, but I'm saying he was the leader of that group. So I think him and Imu definitely had a discussion. And you guys know my theory. It's been for years, my theory of the Will of D being a crew, is being a group, and Joy Boy leading that group. So Neftari being a D while also being a founding member of the world government means that she joined Joy Boy's group in the last minute. And I think Luffy's mom is a descendant from Joy Boy's ancestors, because we're seeing Monkey D's, we're seeing Marshall D's, we're seeing all these D's, but we don't have a Joy D Boy. Like, where's that coming from? I think Luffy's mom might be related to Joy Boy, and I have another video for another day about that. But honestly, I had so much fun talking about the Will of D. And of course, click on the end screen to watch my Imu's new form discussion I did yesterday, and we're dropping content like crazy, of course, so subscribe, guys.